What is happening, Magnus? I heard that the drinker didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. People's like, you gotta see it! What, y'all think I'm gonna get mad or something? I can't get mad over somebody else not liking a movie that I liked. The drinker is a bigot. He's a racist. Let me see, what else can I think of? He hates animals. He's a fat shamer. He's a homophobe. That's a good one. And he's a transphobe. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Send. Yeah. Now, instead of trying to better myself as a human being, let me find other people to bother. Hey, Tyrone, know this guy. He watches the drinker. Yeah. I tell you, boy, I've had a weekend-long block party. Oh, Lord. My block finger is pumped. Remember when Goku fired up the finger to fight Trunks? That's what it's like. I had to fire it up. I was like, oh, this is a lot. It is what it is. So the life is of a social media influencer or YouTuber, whatever you want to call us. That's what it is. Now, let's check this out. As we all know, when he doesn't like something, that's when the review is the funniest. So, critic code ring, there we go.
To lobotomy victim that I ever met.
It's already, what's going on here? Alright.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is without a doubt the best movie that Marvel have put out since No Way Home, which I know in retrospect is a bit like saying, that guy was the most intelligent frontal lobotomy victim that I've ever met.
Wait, that does make me think of something. People were telling me that this movie was actually supposed to come out after Endgame, relatively close, to, after the release of Endgame. I don't know, would it have been a few months or a year or whatever. So they were telling me that I shouldn't get too happy, because basically they weren't full in yet at the end of Endgame, which is true. But now they've been full in, but this is a movie that should have came out then. That rhymed, I like to play the game. Bars, so timeline-wise, it makes sense that it wasn't as bad as what we've been saying. I hope that that's not true. I hope that it's all James Gunn and that he's doing good work over at DC. Alright.
But anyway, take it for what it is.
God.
It's the darkest and most serious of the Guardians trilogy, giving us an interesting villain played by an excellent actor, and delivering moments of poignant tragedy that equal the very best of the MCU. I mean, if you told me that a conversation between a talking raccoon and a cybernetic otter could somehow bring a tear to my jaundiced eye and warm the cold ashes of my black heart, I'd have rightly laughed you out of the building. But this movie goes to show just how wrong I would have been. All that being said, it's also a movie with problems. Lots of problems. The slick and polished efficiency of its predecessors is missing. The script lurches chaotically between dark, serious body horror and personal tragedy one minute, and goofy slapstick comedy the next. It's long.
I liked it better than the first two.
Lacking the discipline to properly explore
the
big ideas that it touches on, and weighed down by a bloated cast that it doesn't know what to do with. In short, it's a bit of a mess. An often glorious and heart-wrenching mess, but a mess all the same. But what the hell, just like Tatiana after one of my special sessions, it's my job to clean up even the most disturbing of creative messes, so here goes.
I want to see this Tatiana.
The movie picks up with Rocket, Quill and the other Guardians chilling out in their new base in nowhere, when suddenly this big gold arsehole shows up and starts fucking the place up. Well, until Nebula shoves a sword through his gut and apparently kills him, but then later on he's like, nah, it'll be fine, and leaves while everyone else is distracted. What exactly are his powers and abilities again? Because he seems to be almost comparable to Captain Marvel in terms of strength and combat power. He can fly through solid walls like they're made out of paper, but then a simple bladed weapon is enough to take him down. Nah, whatever. The point is that Rocket got critically injured in the fight and needs urgent medical attention. Well, I guess it's not that urgent because he's still got like 48 hours to live, so whatever. The problem is that his body's been fitted with a kill switch that will activate if they try to fuck with him. The only way to disarm it is to track down his original creator and steal the deactivation codes.
Right.
It sounds simple enough, but this being a Guardians movie, nothing ever goes according to plan. They're able to infiltrate the high security research station where the code's being held, but oh no, the one piece of information that they actually need has been downloaded into someone else's brain, so now they have to track him down instead. The work is extremely busy on this one, if you catch my drift. Ultimately, their quest takes them to the headquarters of the High Evolutionary, a genius mad scientist obsessed with creating the perfect society and willing to destroy anything or anyone who gets in his way.
I like him more than Kang right now.
Traumatic flashbacks to Rocket's origin and why he's so important to the High Evolutionary. Now, it's no secret that there's a fuck ton of expectations resting on this movie. Not only is it James Gunn's swan song to the Marvel Universe, and probably the final chapter of the Guardians story, but it's pretty much the only movie left in the whole MCU that anyone really gives a shit about. After a string of flops and underperformers, they desperately need a smash hit to get the franchise back on track, and Guardians 3 is probably their best chance. But does it actually get the job done? Well, it definitely does a few things right. For a start, it's almost completely insulated from the rest of the MCU, which can only be a good thing at this point. The more you're handcuffed to that convoluted shit show, the less creative freedom you have to actually tell a story. And James Gunn clearly had a lot of freedom on this one. Maybe a little too much, but don't worry, I'll talk more about that soon enough. Believe that. It's also not afraid to tackle some pretty fucking dark subject matter, and to be honest, this is where the movie really hits its stride. The flashbacks that fill in Rocket's backstory are some of the most compelling, tragic and heartfelt stuff that Marvel's ever produced. The problem is they only take up about 10 minutes of the movie's runtime. I mean, I can't say I was ever that invested in Rocket as a character up until now. He was fine in small doses, but became kind of irritating the longer he was in a scene. But to his credit, this movie really turns him around, and by the end, I was thoroughly rooting for the guy. I think they also gave him the perfect foil in the High Evolutionary, a terrifying mad scientist drunk on power and teetering on the brink of madness. The actor that plays him does a great job selling the intensity and the sheer malicious hatred of the character. Jesus, I'd take this guy over Kang the Conqueror any day of the week. Visually it looks fantastic, which should be a given for a $200 million movie at this point, but it isn't anymore considering how thin Marvel have stretched themselves in recent years. Either way though, the CGI looks fine and the film delivers some excellent spectacle, so I've got no complaints there. And damn man, Quill actually gets to be a hero instead of being constantly upstaged and turned into a fucking joke just to make the girls look better, unlike pretty much every other Marvel project over the past few years.
You did it on your own. You had rings around it. You're amazing.
Now that's great and all, but like I said before, this is a movie with problems, and they are not small. The most obvious one is the emotional tone. This movie is all over the fucking place. Almost every dramatic scene has to be undercut by some quippy joke or ridiculous slapstick comedy, and it's so goddamn jarring and irritating because the serious moments are so much darker and more impactful than before.
Right there.
I mean, would it kill you to just let a dramatic scene sink in for a minute or two? It doesn't help that most of the jokes are about as funny as a 2-hour conversation with a vegan climate activist too. Like, remember Taserface from part 2? Remember how James Gunn ran that joke into the fucking ground when it wasn't even that funny to begin with? Well, that's basically your introduction to the bulk of the humour in this movie. The pacing is also a big problem, especially in the first half of the film. For example, there's an excruciating 30-minute sequence where the gang have to infiltrate a high-security facility to get the code for Rocket's kill switch. It sounds fun, but it's basically just an excuse to have some goofy comedy scenes and ridiculously outlandish set design. Also, is that a reference to Among Us? If so, fucking why? Anyway, by the time it's all done, the one piece of information they actually need has been removed and taken somewhere else.
Basically, no one else has a better idea. So fuck you.
It's the same kind of
What's that?
work that forms the backbone of, well, every single
I wanna watch
Mandalorian
that.
episode.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
This is the way we brush our teeth.
And I guess I just kind of expected more from James Gunn. Problems like this contribute to a bloated runtime of 2.5 hours, which is about 30 minutes longer than the first Guardians, and man, you really start to feel it by the ends. It also means the film doesn't really have time to give its cast proper character arcs, or tackle the bigger ideas that it tries to grapple with, like the conflict between control and free will, and whether a utopia can ever actually exist without someone there to micromanage it. There's a lot of interesting ideas to explore there, but it's all introduced so late in the film that the script just doesn't have time to flesh it out. Also, I can't quite shake the idea that the whole thing was done just because James Gunn thought it'd be a cool idea to have anthropomorphized animals walking around a suburban street. It's the same deal with the characters.
That part, they look a little
Rocket
weird
gets
and
the
wonky.
lion's share of the narrative, but it leaves characters like Quill and Gamora awkwardly sidelines. I mean, I find myself not really caring about their relationship anyway because Gamora is such a total arsehole towards everyone. Like, I get that this is supposed to be an earlier version of the character without all the personal growth of the previous movies, but even the Gamora at the start of the first film was
Yeah, I don't
nowhere
like
near
her
as
in this.
shitty a person as this one. Nebula spends most of the movie just standing around yelling at people, and it's not funny or endearing, it's just screechy and irritating, which is a real shame because I've come to really like her over the years.
I
Adam
like her
Warlock
too.
is given a strong intro, but it's like the writers didn't know what to do with it.
I like
after those
Homelander
first 5
too.
minutes, so he just kind of shows up from time to time and then leaves. Oh, and for some reason the Guardians have all ditched their cool individual outfits from the previous films, and now they all just wear these bland generic uniforms that look dull and depressing. And maybe someone can help me here, but why exactly did Quill decide to ditch his helmet and rocket boots?
People
Do you
were
think that would have
talking
been
about that.
extremely useful to him later in this movie?
Yeah.
These various problems
That's
are
why.
compounded by the usual self-indulgent cameos for
For
James Gunn's
plot.
brother Sean and James Gunn's wife Jennifer
Reasons.
Hollins. Oh my goodness, I just can't figure out why all these people with personal connections to James Gunn keep showing up in James Gunn movies. Must be a total coincidence. Even the soundtrack that punctuated the original movie is just way overdone here. Now it feels like James Gunn just went through his entire music collection and made it his personal mission to shove as much of it into this movie as possible. Most of the time it doesn't really tie into what's happening on screen like the previous movies did, and honestly, it got to the point where I was actually starting to get pissed off with all the shitty pop songs undercutting the action. It was like Gunn was just trying to show off how much of a music connoisseur he is. All these problems add up to a frustratingly uneven, uncharacteristically bloated, messy and self-indulgent sort of film that feels like a real step down from the first two in narrative terms. And I was kind of curious to know why this stuff might have happened, so I did a bit of digging, and wouldn't you know it, this is actually the first Guardians movie where Gunn has got sole writing credit. The first two films were co-written by veteran author Dan Abnett, plus a couple of other contributors, and I suspect those guys were largely responsible for reining Gunn in and keeping things on track. Without those checks and balances in place, he was free to indulge his every whim as a writer, and well, look what we ended up with. It's a bit like Thor Love and Thunder, where Taika Waititi was given a creative blank check to do whatever he wanted,
Now that
and the
was-
result was an utter calamity.
that
of
was
a movie
way
that
further
squandered
out
the goodwill
than this
built up by its
would
predecessor.
ever be.
Guardians 3 is nowhere near as bad as that pile of
Okay,
dog
see?
shit, but it does suffer from the same basic problem of giving too much creative freedom to a guy who doesn't have the discipline to properly use it. Like I said at the start, it's still miles better than anything else Marvel have put out in recent years, and even James Gunn on a bad day is better than most filmmakers working today. I just think his reputation might be slightly bigger than his actual abilities. But hey, if you're really invested in the Guardians movies, then you'll probably get a kick out of their final adventure, but I can't say it was quite the epic send-off I was hoping for. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
See? Now look, me and him agreed on some of this stuff. It wasn't as good to him as it was to me. Look at me. I still like the drinker. I'm not calling him all type of istophobes and everything, but I guarantee you he'll be called that online. Great job as usual, drinker. Funny. Get over there, subscribe. Tell him Tyrone Magnus sent you. If you enjoyed my reaction and thoughts to this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one. Go away now.